People who were killed in self-defense, what is your story? This Russian girl dropped her wallet, so I picked it up to give it back to her. I didn't speak Russian though, so I just kept yelling hey, hey, at her. She started running away from me, so I ran to catch up to her. She started running faster. I thought maybe she didn't hear me, so I screamed hey, you. She turned into this dark alley which was a little spooky, but I was determined to return her wallet. Then she tripped pretty hard on the uneven concrete. I ran over and grabbed her arm to help her up. She started screaming, so I thought maybe she had hurt her arm, so I let go. I then tried to reach into my back pocket to get her wallet for her, and that's when she pulled out a gun and shot me in my face. Ungrateful bitch. So anyway, I started blasting. Hey from the grave, wish you were here. I came back from the dead after 3 days and now I cats. They started it. A while back I used to live in a house my parents had worked hard to build. I had been living there since I was born. When my parents died, I figured I would just live there using my inheritance to be a lazy for the rest of my life. I bought out all the food and water from the stores in my area and managed to hook up power and water from the town without them noticing anything. That way, I wouldn't have to pay for electricity and whatnot. Eventually, I was declared missing and no one bothered to look for me. One day, in the bathroom, I was taking a massive shit in the toilet. Suddenly I hear people opening the door to my house. It sounded like people were trying to buy my house while I was still living in it. I finished taking my shit when they came into the bathroom. They just stood there in shock. I kindly asked them to leave me in peace, and was ready to grab my turd and chase them out with it when they whip out their flamethrowers and incinerate me. The turd in my hand didn't help to keep me from being set on fire. Turns out they were terrorists looking to burn down the neighborhood. Luckily, they were shot down by a SWAT team after just a few houses. This was about 30 years ago, and I'm still floating around in limbo. Haven't had to deal with anyone for years. Dying has got to be the best thing that has ever happened to me. 10 out of 10 would die again. Well, I was taking a crapper, and I ran out of toilet paper, so I checked to other stalls. Nothing. I then walked into the girls' restroom, my pants still being down, to get some toilet paper. Next thing I know, I'm dead. Because cocaine is a hell of a drug. All I said was, let me axe you something. I got axed before I could axe him. I moved to Chicago and have been murdered 8 times, including during a walk through Maggie Daley Park on the way to the cultural center. It's tough being a war zone, man. That would make a legit opening statement for a support group leader in the afterlife. Let out a loud fart. He must have thought it was gunfire. I was sent back from the pits of hell just to leave this comment. This guy was trying to kill me. He was on top of me and strangling me. The only weapon I had was a hand grenade. I pulled the pin and the rest is a bit jumbled. Not a guy who was killed by my dad was. He tried to stop me from killing him, but I wanted to not stop. You'll never know, bro. My lips are sealed forever. Was drunk. Saw a smaller guy than me and just grabbed him by the neck to choke him. Next thing I know, he shot me. I don't talk about this story often, but my family is full of time travelers, and I got a visit from myself. But he was older, in his mid-20s. I'm 15 now, and it was horrifying seeing someone so me like. He told me the story of our family history, of how we found the time stone of BS that allowed our family to travel through time. But then he got weird and quiet. We went out that night to my favorite restaurant and I saw him pull out something from his pocket. I said I needed to go to the bathroom, and I got a glance of what it was. It was the hunting knife that I got when I was 9 years old. I knew what he was going to do. He was going to kill me, or technically himself. He started to lunge at me and I immediately Jackie Chan'd over the counter and grabbed a butcher knife. I threw it at his face and it split his head in 2. So yes, this was the story of how I was killed in self-defense. Dude didn't like that I wanted his wallet, so he shot me in the face like a asshole. Not necessarily in self-defense per se, but I got into an argument with some teenagers being loud and one of them hit me with OK Boomer and then I died. In my defense, everybody was kung fu fighting. I got bopped. So, I had an affair with a lady. We were doing our usual business in the kitchen. She screaming my name. We hear her nephew come home, very early, from school, and wanting to make sure her husband didn't found out. I acted like I was mugging her with a knife so the kid would run off and I could do the same in the other direction. The kid shot me in the face with a shotgun. No warning. You should see the other guy. I died, homie, I'm dead. It was a dark and stormy night. The wind whistled through the evergreen trees as I stepped out of my El Camino onto the coarse, graveled road. The cold, dense, woodland air whipped around my amber hair, making me tighten my wool scarf around my neck. I proceeded down the dimly lit path to a cabin, the grinding crunch of each footstep on gravel echoing in my ears. The cabin had once belonged to my late grandfather. Faded memories drifted through my mind as I approached the vacant and lonely porch steps. Kriak, kriak, kriak. The boards groaned as I maneuvered across the dark porch and to the front door. Leaves had piled up in its corners over the years and thick dust covered the dark window panes. The emptiness of the cabin reflected the void my grandfather had left when his spirit had moved on. I shuffled in my pocket for the key, a lone wolf howling in the distance as thunder began to reverberate through the forest. I have to make this quick. The storm is getting closer, I muttered to myself as I slipped the brass key into its familiar lock, turning the key while turning the doorknob. I gave the door a gentle push, but it refused to budge. Harder and harder. I pushed my weight into the door until it finally gave way with a mighty thud. I fumbled for the light switch on the wall next to the door and flipped it on. Everything was just as he had left it. An ugly red and green plaid rug adorned the one-room cabin in front of the stone fireplace. Two hunter green chairs covered in dust sat next to each other across from the empty mantel, above which rested the taxidermied head of a massive elk. Old, framed, family photos hung crooked and forgotten on the outdated, wood-paneled walls. A makeshift bed on an old mattress could be seen in the far dark corner next to a table and, what I could only assume to be, a kitchen. I closed the door behind me, picking up some logs piled next to the front door. I started a fire in the fireplace. Soon the cabin was warm and cozy, just as I remembered it long ago. I straightened some of the pictures on the wall and cleaned off some of the dust from the table, finding his old pipe in the process. Curious. I looked in the kitchen cupboard, finding mostly dead bugs and a few dead rodents, until I found his tobacco. I placed his pipe, filled with tobacco, between my lips and got it going. The smell was reminiscent as it re-permeated into every crevice of the cabin. I walked over to one of the green chairs and fell into its arms. Memories of long talks with my grandfather by the fire wafted back to me. I stared into the flames, hoping I could see his face one last time. BAAAM. The sound of the Kool-Aid man bursting through the front of the cabin rang through my head, tossing me from the chair, the brisk winter wind attacking my being once more as the giant, red beverage-filled pitcher's voice caught the wind screaming into my eardrums. "Oyeaaaah," the liquidy devil cried. I grabbed my grandfather's rifle that leaned up against the fireplace. He always kept it loaded. I refused to let the aqua demon that took my grandfather take me as well. As I aimed my shot, I realized it was too late. He had already prepared his AK-47 and begun firing. Everything went black. You. Kool-Aid man. You. Was unarmed except for a Snickers and was shot in the back by cops who felt threatened by my 112 pounds frame. 10 out of 10 would die again. I ran up to him in an alley. He slammed a 4x4 in the side of my head. Wait. I'm dead. Oh my god. I thought I was at the DMV. Now it all makes sense why it was taking so long for my number to be called. Read about Adolf Hitler. He tried killing some German Nazi dude in 1945 and got shot in self-defense. Skull-level night elf came at me in Stranglethorn Vale. I cursed her with agony, but already it was too late. Luckily I was soul-stunned. I have 1,000 stories exactly like this one. Be careful out there in the world. I died. This dude freaking killed me. What in a hole. I'm literally dead reading this. I was suicidal and I was trying to kill me. The only thing I could do was kill my attacker. I shot me in my head. I died instantly. I don't recommend it. I don't think graves have internet access. Sadly, I was killed, but I lived. I broke into some guy's house to steal all his flour. He saw me and ran for his gun. I followed and ended up getting killed. That was the end of the flour burglar.